Hey guys, Kakarot197 again with another question of the week. A couple of weeks ago in the Gundam news video where I talked about how the Gundam Café was closing, I also talked about how I used to work there and how this obviously struck me extra hard that it was closing. Which then led to a couple of you asking like, how did you get to work there? What was it like working there? And things like that. So in today's question of the week, I'm going to be talking about how I got hired at the Gundam Café. Now, the first additional question some of you might have is, can I prove that I actually worked there and that I'm not just saying stuff? Here is a picture. Here is the extended video of what I showed.
はい、大丈夫です。
なんだよ、スパイカメラか。
あ、それ俺スパイで。
And here is a picture of my name badge when I used to work there. That should be plenty of proof that I did actually work there. Also, I'm gonna say that I fully realize that the story I'm about to tell you is a bit on the crazy side, so if I made it up, I would have made up a way better story, believe me. So the setup for this is I went to Japan to study there for 1 year, and obviously when I was in Japan, I went to the Gundam Café a lot. Especially like in the first few weeks because I didn't have classes yet, so I could do whatever I want. So I went to Akihabara a lot, shopped, well, did a lot of window shopping, went to the Gundam Café to drink stuff, eat stuff, and so on. And then one of those days, I saw someone there working on her laptop. And that immediately gave me an idea. Like, why don't I do my homework at the Gundam Café instead of at the library? Now, if you've ever been to the Gundam Café, you know that it is quite loud there and that they're constantly looping the Gundam intros. I'm someone who's always studying with a lot of noise anyways. Like back in the day, my mom always used to tell me like, how can you study like this? And I'm like, it keeps me awake. If I listen to soft, quiet music, I just fall asleep. So that kind of environment actually helps me doing homework. So that's why I did actually go to the Gundam Café to do my homework. Not every time, but I did do it relatively often. And apparently, I did it often enough to get noticed. Now, the thing here is that later on when I was working at the Gundam Café, I did notice kind of a pattern, like a difference between the customers. The Japanese people did tend to stay longer, and there were other people who did things like me. Like I remember a pair of girls who was there all afternoon drawing stuff. That was pretty cool to see. And then you have the foreigners who tend to be more hurried because, you know, the Gundam Café is one stop in their journey. Like they're traveling across Japan, they're traveling across Tokyo, they pop into the Gundam Café, order something to drink, order something to eat, and they're out of there. So I think I was definitely making it quite clear by the fact that I was doing my homework there, writing my kanji, that I was more than the average tourist. So one day I go to make my order at the counter. This was still back when you had to make your order at the counter. So I go there, and at that time, the guy standing there was just every other waiter. So I go there with the expectation of ordering my food. And all of a sudden, he like starts to have a conversation with me. Not that I was weirded out. I was just like, oh, cool. I get to practice my Japanese a little bit. He asks me like, oh, hey, do you like Gundam? And I'm like, well, I quite like Gundam. Yeah, you could say that. He asks me a couple of other questions that I've honestly forgotten. We just made a bit of small talk. And then all of a sudden he just like, I guess one of the questions must have been like, oh, are you studying here? Are you a tourist? And then he just hits me with the bombshell. He straight up asks me like, would you like to work here? And I'm like, whoa, I did not expect that. And I'm like, sure, yeah, sure, why not? Like, gives me his business card, take the business card, and I'm like, wait, we saw this in class. I gotta take the business card, look at the business card, put the business card safely in my wallet. Gotta make sure we use that Japanese etiquette. Put it back, and then I'm like, I would like a hamburger, please, because I was there to order my food, and I get offered a job. It's like, oh yeah, I would like a hamburger, and he's like, oh, do you want a job with that hamburger? So I just go back to my table after having ordered my food, being like, what the hell just happened? Like, did I seriously just get a job offer? So I go back to my table, get my food, eat my food, go home, and then just like think about what am I gonna do with this job offer, because the plan in Japan was to just make the most of it as like an otaku. So then a couple of days later, again during one of my Akihabara trips, I go back to the Gundam Cafe, enter the Gundam Cafe, and obviously one of the waiters comes up to me and it's like, oh yeah, I'll direct you to your table. And I'm like, about that, I'm here for a job. Is manager so-and-so here? And they're like, oh, give me a second, I'll go get him. He shows up and he's like, oh, hey, you're back. You want the job? And just because he's so surprised that I'm back, I'm like, wait, should I be worried that you weren't expecting me to take the job? But whatever. So we talk about the details a little bit. We make some of the arrangements. And I also tell him, like, I would like to work here, but the thing is, I also still want to protect my free time, so I asked ahead of time, would it be okay if I only work here for 1 or 2 days? And he was like, yeah, totally, no problem. You can choose how much or how little you want to work here. And like the manager was really chill about it, because he straight up also asked me like, do you have a minimum amount of time that you must work here, like to make sure that you earn enough? And I'm like, no, definitely not. I just like 1 day or 2 days maximum. So that was really cool. And so we set up the job interview. The unfortunate thing then was, that was like the week before Golden Week. So I had to wait an extra week so we could do the job interview after Golden Week. Because he was like, we're not going to do it during Golden Week because that's not going to be fun for me. It's not going to be fun for you, because I would be constantly interrupted by having to go help out at the cafe, and I'd have to leave you here. And it would also be horrible to get you worked in on like during Golden Week. I'm like, yeah, totally fine, totally understandable. The funny thing then is, because I'm at the Gundam Cafe, I'm just thinking to myself like, well, I'm here anyways, I might as well eat here as well. So I grab a table, make my food order, and the waiter who comes to serve me is already like, oh, I'm so looking forward to working with you. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I still got to do my job interview, man. I'm not sure that I have this job yet. So I spend the next like 1 week and a couple of days like stressing over the fact like what is he going to ask me, like translating my resume into Japanese. I'm spicing it up a little bit with like some Gundam themed pointers and whatnot. And the thing is, that was going to be my first interview in Japanese, so I really did not know what to expect. Like, I wasn't too worried about it in a way because, well, I was very neutral about it. If I got it, that was cool. If I didn't got it, well, that was fine as well. But then comes the day of the interview. Make my way to the Gundam Cafe, go into the Gundam Cafe, the manager's there. All right, we go to the back to do the job interview. I'm like, I had my resume prepared super well, hand him my resume, and he goes like, oh, Thank you for the resume. We're putting that over there. And here is your contract. Let's go over the contract and make sure you understand everything. And I'm just like, huh. I already have the job. So yeah, I did not expect that I already had the job, apparently. So when that waiter said, I'm looking forward to working with you, it literally was that. I literally already had the job. So we go over the contract, and the one thing I will never forget is when he points to like 3 or 4 headers and goes like, I'm sure this won't be a problem for you, but do you understand what these things are? And I go over them and it's like pawahara, sekuhara, and another kind of hara. In full, that means sexual harassment, power harassment, and the third kind of harassment, I don't remember what it was called, also because I didn't understand it from the abbreviation. So that one I actually had to ask him what that was. And he very eloquently explained what that was. That was a different, like, the Japanese word for don't harass the customers, please. And he also gave like a very good example, because if you've ever been to the souvenir store of the Gundam Café, here is like the cash register and there's like a wall next to it. But that's actually a see-through wall. So he was like, if a beautiful customer enters, don't take pictures of her. That was like the example of, please do not harass the customers. We don't like that. So I was like, yeah, sure, that is totally fine. So after that, all that was left to do was to get my working permit, and I was off to the races. Except there was one more thing to deal with. The final boss of working anywhere in Japan. Japanese banks. Dear God. So, I was told that I needed a bank account to get paid. Fair enough. So the manager told me that there is bank in the neighborhood. I don't remember which bank it was. So he told me, oh, you can go make a bank account there. I took that as an example, as in, yeah, this is in the neighborhood, so that's an easy place to go make a bank account, so I recommend you go make it there. It's like the bank I like, for example, something like that. So I made an account at Bank X because that was close to where I lived, which was convenient for me. So then I come into work and tell my manager about my new bank account at Bank X. And he goes like, oh, you didn't make it at Bank Y. And I'm like, no, should I have? And then he goes like, well, it's not really a problem, but the thing is, we, the Gundam Café, use Bank Y. So if we'd have to transfer your salary from Bank Y to Bank X, you would have to pay fees on that. And I'm like, ugh. That was like something that was in the back of my mind, and it like came back like, of course, that's how Japanese banks worked. It was like something that I heard about once, but I didn't think about it anymore, and it all came back the moment he told me. So to Bank Y, I go. I'm there. I gotta wait in line for like half an hour. It's my turn. I tell the person of the bank like, oh, hey, I would like to make a bank account. Sure, no problem. How long have you been in Japan for? And at that time, I was like in Japan for 4 months, I think. Something like that. I had to have been in Japan for 6 months before I could make a bank account there. It didn't matter that I had a visa to stay for like, I don't know how long it would allow me to stay, but it definitely was enough to last me a year. It didn't matter that I was enrolled in a university there for a year. I needed to be physically in Japan for 6 months to be able to make an account with them that I was only going to use to get the salary from my job, which then would have made them money. I just tell my manager at the Gundam Cafe the story, and he's like, well, we'll just put your money in Bank X then, and after 6 months you go try again at Bank Y. On the 6-month mark, I go back to Bank Y, wait another half an hour in line, and I don't know what the issue was, nor do I care anymore, but there was still some stupid reason that I could not make a bank account at Bank Y. Now, the face that I'm showing you now is the internal face I was making at the bank. When they told me, like, yeah, sorry, we can't do anything for you, I was just like, well, that's what it is then, I guess. If you tell me that you can't do it, well, there's nothing I can do about that. So, again, I told my manager about the situation, and he was just also like, well, I guess we'll just send your salary to your bank account at Bank X then. And that's what it was. Which I guess means that I made less than minimum wage because of the situation, but whatever. It was fun working there, and I guess that about does it for today. Oh, and then the final thing that I gotta mention in this first video is, of course, when exactly I worked at the Gundam Cafe and when you could have seen me there. I worked there from May 2018 until the end of December 2018, so a little over half a year. But I did only work once a week, so it's very possible you went to the Gundam Cafe during that time and you didn't see me at all. However, if you were served during that time by a white dude, or you saw a white dude running around during that time, that was most definitely me. I was the only one there. And I think that about does it for today. So join me next time when I tell some of the stories about the colorful customers I encountered. Most of them were very positive. Some of them, not so much. Also, if you have any specific questions you'd like me to answer about the Gundam Cafe or like working at the Gundam Cafe, also leave them down below. So as always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.